One, you are online.
Labvakar, paldies vēl par iespēju šeit piedalīties. Pie mums šodien ir ļoti augsts viesis. Citi mēdī kaut kā diezgan pasīvi pret šo attiecās. Pie mums ir Tibets'Freedom valdības premjerministrs Dr. Lobsang Sangay. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Thank you for your visit Latvia. We are very, very glad, and that's an honor for us to see you here in our country. For those who more or less understand and feel their love towards Tibet and everything what's going on, but still there's a lot of how can I say, there's not so much information about Tibet, what's going on, and mostly, of course, media, they are not so active, or they are, let's say, quite proactive. So maybe you can say a couple of words about Tibet.
Yeah, first of all, I want to thank all our friends in Latvia, and I know it's not that easy to be friends or supporters of Tibet and Tibetan people. I know many of you love His Holiness Dalai Lama, and he visits Latvia every year. But it's very important to understand that Tibet issue is not simply an issue of 6 million Tibetans, but it involves China, and China is everywhere. So Chinese influence in Baltic states, in all of Europe and whole world, it's a real deal. And I know I was told that one town, 60 kilometers from here, have a lot of Chinese residents who came and almost occupied that town. Similarly, the talk about buying, Riga seaport, and whether the 5G technology will be given to Huawei, all these things are debated in Latvia, and this needs to be debated. My point is, if you want to understand China, you must understand what happened in Tibet. If you don't understand what happened in Tibet, you will never understand what China is capable of. So that way, Tibet issue is not simply an issue of 6 million Tibetans, but an issue of whole world. Climate point of view, religious freedom point of view, human rights point of view, democracy point of view, Tibet is relevant. So I urge all the people in Latvia to study about Tibet. And recently we translated one book, Tibet was never part of China, but middle way is a viable option, in Latvian language. I urge all of you to read the book, which has every aspect of Tibet in it, and you will understand Tibet issue better. So, but I want to extend all my heartfelt gratitude for being supporters for all these years and carry on the good fight.
Thank you. And this is the first year when state security of Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia first time mentioned some kind of threat from China's side. So that's mean I think the situation comes closer, and we start more understand what really China is. And we talk about not Chinese as people, as great nation, as very great culture. We talk about system, about CCP, China Communist Party, and they unfortunately tried different way to buy politicians with different things and gifts and promises.
Yeah,
that's I think biggest problem. And I heard Chinese said like His Holiness is splittest, but what do you think? Looking what's going on in Europe, like example, how China tried to deal with each state differently, or try to Europe Union to split with each other.
First of all, Tibetan movement is neither anti-China as a country or anti-Chinese people. We have nothing against China as a country or Chinese people. Chinese civilization is great, Chinese culture is very rich, and we all love Chinese food. There's no problem at all. But Chinese Communist Party and its policies on Tibet, repressive policies, very discriminatory policies, is the problem. So, for example, Belt and Road Initiative is debated all over the world, including Baltic states. But our experience is because of one road that was built by China connecting to Tibet led to our country, Tibet, being occupied. Now that one road has become 100 roads, one railway line has become second, third, fourth railway line, one airport has become 30 airports, all leading to our mineral resources, our gold, our copper, our uranium, our lithium, which is in Chinese phone batteries, and all others are exploited now by Chinese companies because now all the airports are going there, all the railways are going there, all the roads are going there. So because of one road, we lost our country. So for us, Belt and Road Initiative means occupation of Tibet and losing our freedom. So the strategy that they deployed in Tibet says it's the same thing: co-opting the ruling elite, buying off, paying some of the top Tibet officials in 1950s. They supported China, and we lost our country. So I see this played over and over again all over European countries. Many of the ministers or former ministers, high officials, European governments are providing service to the Chinese government as quote-unquote consultants. And Europe is already divided. 16 plus 1 is the China group. And if you study the 16 countries, and if you go to Geneva Human Rights Council, if you see which countries in Europe raise human rights situation in China, the 16 countries are often silent. On the one hand, Europe says we have a unified human rights policy for the world, but on China is divided. So China has effectively deployed divide and rule strategy. So among the Baltic states will be divided, Nordic states will be divided, Arctic Council will be divided, European Union will be divided, European countries will be divided. That's how they come and then win. So you all need to be very careful. These are the lessons we Tibetans learned. We lost our country, we lost our freedom. I hope you will not lose yours. So that's the message we have.
And last one, we know like 10 major rivers comes from Tibet. We know about Tibet Plateau and glaciers. We know about, as you said, all mineral sources or richness of land of Tibet. And what can you say for those who say, politics, I don't care, it's far from me. What else? European Union, I don't care, it's far from me. Tibet is far from me. Nature, yes, maybe. So what can happen after all trees will be cut and glaciers will melt and rivers will flood?
Tibet is called the third world. After Antarctica and Arctic, Tibet has the third highest reserve of ice or snow. The difference is Antarctica and Arctic, when they melt, it goes to ocean. When the Tibetan glaciers melt, it forms streams and rivers. So 10 major rivers of Asia, Yangtze, Yellow River, Brahmaputra River, Mekong River, Indus River, all flow from Tibet, providing fresh water to 1.4 billion people. And many environmentalists have said, if you want to understand climate change and global warming, you have to study Tibetan Plateau. If you don't understand Tibetan Plateau, global warming will not be complete. So whether summer is hot in Europe, including in Baltic states and Latvia, or winter is too cold in whole of Europe, is partly determined by Tibetan Plateau. Because the jet stream over Tibet affects climate all the way to Europe, to Latin America, and North America. So it's that important. So from environmental point of view, Tibet is very important. Now, what's frightening is, since the occupation of Tibet, 50% of Tibetan glaciers or snow have melted and disappeared. By 2050, even NASA says, of the remaining 42,000 glaciers, up to 70% could disappear. Now what will happen? Tibet acts as the refrigerator or fridge for the whole world because it's so high and covered by snow. So the cool air everywhere in the world is partly affected by the Tibetan plateau. Now, if all the snow is melted, if there is no snow on Mount Everest, it's melting, it's disappearing. Kanchenjunga, Tibet has the, among the 100 tallest mountains in the world, Tibet has the most number of mountains in the whole world. And the snows are melting very fast. Then 1.4 billion people who are dependent on water flowing from Tibet will be in trouble. And the global warming, because it acts as a refrigerator. If there's no snow, then it will be warm. Then it contributes to the global warming. Most dangerous part is 70% of Tibetan plateau is permafrost, which means frozen earth. So when frozen earth is defrozen or defreezes, right, then land becomes wet and there'll be holes. Underneath the Tibetan plateau is 10,000 million tons of carbon dioxide. That will be released. And equal amount of methane. Methane is 28 times or 30 times more powerful, more polluted than carbon dioxide. Once that is released, global warming as we know it is gone. So hence Tibetan plateau, from environmental point of view, affects all over the world, including in Europe and Baltic states. Hence Tibet is very important from environmental point of view, from democracy point of view, from religious freedom point of view, from human rights point of view. And whether non-violence succeed or not is also dependent on Tibet. So hence it's very important. So support for Tibet is not just support of 6 million Tibetans. It's for non-violence, it's for justice, it's for freedom, it's for democracy, it's for environmental rights, it's for human rights. It's for the values and principles of Baltic states, for solidarity, I have many friends in the Baltic states, including you, who said that in 1980s, Latvia did not believe it will gain its independence. But many people hoped for, but you did it. So if Baltic states did it, which are small in size and population, against Soviet Union, our situation is very similar to like yours. So don't tell us that you Tibetans have no chance, because you yourself had no chance in the 1980s. You succeeded, and we will succeed too. When we succeed, we will say, Baltic states succeeded, Tibet also succeeded. It will be the same chapter in world history. Non-violence and justice will prevail. Solidarity will prevail once again. Thank you. Tashi Dalek.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Paldies. Ar labvakar, tiekamies nākošais un sekojiet notikumiem Tibetā. Paldies.
Thank you.